welcome to the Sitecore Tech Talks. I'm Alok Kadudeshmukh, co-host of the sessions, and today is a special episode because my co-host is our guest today, Varun Shringarpure. So let's welcome. Welcome, man.
Hi, Alok.
That's it.
Yeah, thanks.
So Varun Shringarpure, he is having 13 years of experience in Sitecore, and since last 9 years he is working at Horizontal. He has started as a developer and currently working as a senior tech lead at Horizontal.
Yeah.
So Varun, first question, what as an audience, what we will get after this session?
Sure. So today we'll look at Sitecore CDP, and my kind of thought process behind this episode is whether a person who is plunging into the personalization world or whether who already knows personalization, this episode is to give them insights of the basic FAQs or the basic questions that anybody might get who is either starting off on CDP or has theoretical knowledge but wants to know a little bit from a practical standpoint. Why is it used? What do I do as a user or as a marketer? What do I do? All such things. And end of this episode, if I'm able to add value in these areas, I think I'll feel this episode is successful.
That's great. That's great. Okay. So what is CDP?
Right. So CDP, it's kind of an abbreviation of Customer Data Platform. So as the name suggests, it is a collection of software which can be utilized to collect data about your customers, store it somewhere, and that is kind of a general definition of CDP. This might or might not involve unification. This might or might not involve looking at it from different directions. On a general basis, it is mainly storage of your customer data and their behavior and their transactions on any platform for that matter.
Okay. And why should we use CDP?
Right. So now before we go towards why should we use CDP, what is Sitecore CDP? So Sitecore CDP, technically would add a layer onto it, wherein it not just collects the data, it tries to unify it in its own way. That is, if there are multiple user profiles available, if you are able to provide some PII information, it unifies into one customer profile.
Okay.
And at the end of it, it gives you a 360 view of your customer in the platform itself. Okay, and with that 360 view of the customer, you can have various data which is regarding analytics of that particular user, that when the user arrived on your digital platform for the first time,
Okay.
which device or which devices is your customer using, in what time duration is your user or your customer being available or is active on your website or the digital platform. What all actions is that user performing on your website, whether he is looking at some pages, whether he is subscribing to your blog, he is reading some blog articles, he is sharing them, so all these actions and transactions that the user is performing on your website is captured into CDP.
Okay.
And you can put on two users, one user who has the basic access to it, but then if there is a developer or an admin level access, you can even go into the nitty-gritties of JSON. So Sitecore CDP basically saves all this data in JSON.
Okay.
In its format, and then as a developer you can enable a setting, and then you can see all that JSON data as well and look at that in detail.
Okay.
Right.
So is there any restriction that can I use CDP can I integrate the CDP, I would say, with any application, or I must have Sitecore as my website?
No, it can be integrated to any website for that matter. It can also be integrated with an simple HTML website if you want.
Okay.
It can be integrated with mobile apps, native mobile apps. It can be integrated with React Native.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
So any app, it can be integrated. Think about it having as a kind of a beacon script, which is an initializer of your CDP for the customer on their client side, and that is what helps you taking that data into CDP, and then that is where the conversation begins. So it's
Okay.
when your website loads for the first time, it could be as simple as just the same way we have Google Analytics, right? This is kind of an integration or utilization of.
Then you can utilize those data to with any application.
Correct. And you know what? It is also good to understand why we should use Sitecore CDP. So let's take a usual example. Okay, we go to a store today, any store for that matter, right? And we order something, right? So then we go to that store, we order something, and then that user just gives us that thing. We pay and we go.
Right.
Now let's say we are going to another store. Okay, exactly similar store, but then over there when we are ordering something, let's say we're ordering stationery. Okay, so let's say we are ordering pens.
Right.
Then there is a user, that particular owner, the first owner, he gives us the pens and we pay and we go. But then the other user, he says, you know what, people who have ordered these pens have also taken these kind of pads.
Right.
It's a nice one if you want to try it out. It's a nice notepad for your pocket size notes. Do you want to have it? The next time you go, you get kind of an extra thing, some extra discussion, which that user is trying or going an extra mile to help you out as well.
Right.
So now you tell me, which store will you go generally?
Obviously, the second one where the shopkeeper understand my need, or maybe he analyze my interest.
Correct.
And suggest me the products.
So basically, you are getting valued there,
Right.
So that is, I believe, the main reason why we should have CDP, because in digital world, you might not know, like, there is going to be n number of users coming to your website. You do not know the liking and disliking of every user, but what you can try is attempt of what that user is doing and try understanding. Probably this is something that the user might like.
Got it.
Right, so in such cases, it is very nice to just go an extra mile, try understanding the profile, looking at it from a 360 view, and then providing some inputs or processing some things for that user, which makes that user feel like the brand is loyal to that person, and then going an extra step over there.
And it will indirectly helps the business as well.
Absolutely.
Upscaling or cross-scaling.
Upselling and cross-selling. So that's where the CDP can technically help you.
Yeah. So when we are talking about offline users, okay, there is a human interaction, okay, but when we talk about digital interaction,
Right.
so how can I identify a guest user without any personal information in CDP?
Great question. So I just mentioned regarding kind of a beacon script which initializes that thing on the client, right? So what happens is internally that script generates kind of a BID. It can be called a box saver ID or a browser ID.
Okay.
That is a unique ID given to every visitor of your website.
Okay.
So there are different profiles available in CDP. When you have the person information, when you do not have person information, all those things.
Okay.
So the user who is not providing any person information but has visited for your website for the first time, he's called a visitor.
Okay.
When we and that visitor is identified using that browser ID or box saver ID. That ID is there in the browser. So when the website loads, that session is created, that data starts coming into your CDP.
Okay.
Instantaneously. It uses Stream API to bring that data to CDP. Okay. Now whenever the user is going through different pages, that data is also coming to CDP using the stream API.
Okay.
Now let's say the user is still not given any personal information, neither name, email ID or any other ID. Okay, the user is just visiting different things, and he's looking at a video, he's looking at something. You know what? In that case, I would like to shift a little personal here. Tell me something which is your hobby.
Hobby is photography.
Photography. Okay, so then you might be interested in cameras, iPhones, right? Then lenses,
Yep.
flashlights, all those things. So then you have different type of lenses. Let's say you are visiting a photography website wherein they are selling cameras and lenses and all the other equipments related to photography, right? So technically, if you go to, you have not given your personal data, but then you are going to that website, you are looking at a couple of cameras, you are comparing the two different cameras, then you are looking at some lenses, right? Based on this, CDP curates all this data.
Okay.
And then there is also something called segmentation, which, so batch segmentation is something which goes on at like a nightly build thing. So all the data is curated, and 24 hours all the data is segmented out. So let's say the photography website has CDP and it is curating all such data based on various segments.
Okay.
That this user is into a segment of wildlife photography, or this user is into, some people do street photography, some people do nature photography. So all such different segments probably the system is having, or they are being configured that way. So based on the products that you are undergoing, you have not given any PII data, but just based on that ID, the interactions that you are doing, you are put into a segment and being identified as one type of user.
Okay. So is it kind of related to personalization or something?
Yes, kind of, not exactly. But the good thing being, even with this data, because you are segmented out as a user, yes, you can be given some level of personalization along with with this segmentation, even without any PII.
Okay. So might be we have one more session on personalization as well.
Sure.
Not today because it will be too huge, but
Yeah.
one session we can plan for sure.
Sure, absolutely.
So coming back to without personal information, it will be a guest, right?
Yes.
The user will be treated as a guest, okay, and still CDP will collect the data, okay. So what is the life cycle of this guest?
All right. Sure. So any user who is interacting with your brand is called a guest. So now let's look at the different phases in which this guest can move. Okay. So when the user, like, let's say you are visiting the same website from your mobile phone and from your desktop. Okay. So then you technically have two profiles. You have not given personal information anywhere right now. Right. So you are visitor Alok 1, visitor Alok 2. All right. Alok is for me right now because I know you, but the system doesn't know you. Now let's say you are fascinated by that website and the amount of content and the quality of content that they have. So you decide to sign up.
Okay.
Right. So you gave your email ID and you signed up.
Okay.
So now this visitor has become a customer. So the initial phase is called a visitor. The second phase is called a customer. All right. Now, what happens here is that visitor, all the transactions, all the behavioral information, the page views and everything, which initially was known as a visitor, is now moved to Alok Kadu Deshmukh.
Okay.
Right. Now, of course, you have signed in on your desktop. You have not signed in on your mobile.
Okay.
So your mobile is still a visitor. So what you now decide to do is you decide to sign up or sign in on your mobile phone as well with the same credentials that you utilize on your desktop.
Okay.
Right. So in such cases, what happens? That data of visitor 2 now moves to Alok.
So it will be integrated?
It will be integrated.
Okay.
It will be integrated, and this visitor 2, which was for your mobile, is then archived.
Okay.
And that archived is called a retired guest. Right. So there are 3 profiles or profile types, if per se, in CDP. One is a visitor who does not have any PII information shared. second is a customer who has PII information shared, and third is a retired.
Got
Like
it.
if you are having multiple profiles and once it is unified into one customer profile, the one which gets archived is retired.
Okay. And what will happen to that retired content?
So that content of that is moved to your customer.
Okay.
You cannot view that retired profile.
Okay.
And then it gets recycled from the system.
Okay. Okay.
Right now, the analogy here is we can directly have one-to-one mapping of these users with Sitecore XP contacts. Right. So when we say visitor, it is an unknown contact.
Right.
Right. We used to have analytics
Yep.
in Sitecore XP, so we used to have contacts, right? So unknown contact is without any PII information, right? But then the moment the user gives email in say a form or something, that becomes a known contact. So that is your customer, and the visitor is your unknown contact. The concept of retired, you do not have a one-to-one linking there, but at least with with a platform like CDP, wherein you have all the profiles covered and you know how to move data of one user's profile into and unify into one profile.
Right.
This is where the retired comes into picture and helps us understanding the concept between unification of multiple profiles and giving you a 360 view.
Got it. So in CDP, how do I identify the users?
Right. So in Sitecore CDP, identification of a user is technically dependent on identity. So identifying user identity, you can have multiple rules there. You can either identify it using your email ID. You can either identify it using say a combination of rules. You can either identify it using say a loyalty number,
Okay.
or a CRM ID or some other downstream system ID, however you want to, or a combination of all these.
So it is manageable.
It is.
Okay.
It is
and
manageable.
configurable, right?
Very
Okay.
much.
Okay.
But once you configure it, it is good to continue with that same till the lifetime, because otherwise what you will need to do is, for example, you are having one way of doing it today and then you change the way tomorrow, some of your your user data or your customer data will suffer. So while setting up or configuring CDP for yourself, this is an important factor to consider and factor into, I would say, of how do I want to really uniquely identify a user,
Right.
and set that identity right away so that it is taken into consideration when we are doing the work or identifying users.
Right. Agree. Can I integrate Sitecore CDP with other Sitecore products?
Yes, of course, why not? So that is the beauty of Sitecore CDP in the composable world today. So Sitecore CDP can also be integrated with a Sitecore XP website, which is 9.x for that matter. So it is quite possible that you want to have a CDP, and like you are using personalization today with XP, but you plan to move to XM Cloud tomorrow, right? So what you want is you want to start utilizing CDP today and move all your personalization and things into CDP, your customer identification into CDP using Sitecore XP 9.0 or 9.x, right? So that customer data starts flowing into your CDP.
Okay.
And then one day you shift your website from XP to XM. That is quite possible.
Right.
It is also possible that you want to fire some marketing automation. So you can either use Sitecore Connect to connect to different products of Sitecore, or even Salesforce for that matter, for their marketing cloud, the marketing automation, and then marketing cloud of Salesforce. You can utilize Sitecore Send for email sending. Sitecore Send has its internal marketing automation available. So what we can do is the data or the customer data that we have, we can send a request when a particular action is triggered from CDP to Sitecore Send marketing automation, and then that Sitecore marketing automation of Sitecore Send sends an email to the users. So all these things are very easily possible.
So, okay. So this is from Sitecore CDP to any other Sitecore products. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, suppose I'm having some data in my XDB. Okay. Can I migrate those data to CDP?
Very much.
Okay.
Very much. So why just like I'll go two ways here. One is, of course, if you have already have a Sitecore 9x, you have XDP and you have all the contacts, and before you migrate, you want to migrate your contact data to a newer system. Very much of a real world scenario, right? So Sitecore already has documentation of exporting contacts.
Okay.
And there are other community members who have written also some scripts of having those contacts being exported from XDB to any other external system. So you can utilize that for exporting it from XDB, right? And then you can use batch API of Sitecore CDP to
Get it
put
imported.
imported into CDP in batches.
Okay.
So technically what happens here is, you have three ways in which you can input data into CDP. One is stream API, second is REST API, and third is batch API.
Okay.
Right, so all the behavioral data that you had, page visits, going through different sections of the website, all that is stream API. Let's say you're going and ordering something on the website or adding something to the cart.
Okay.
Such things are technically the actions that user takes. They can be put into REST API per se.
Got it.
And the third is batch API. So batch API is utilized for getting data from some downstream legacy system or our current manufacturing system into CDP, so that the profiles are identified and segmentation and things can also go on. Okay, so the first phase of your question, I'll say, of course, XDB, but why just XDB? Let's say you are, you talked about photography, right? So I am already having a digital platform, but my manufacturing platform has SAP or any other CRM for that matter, wherein my orders are coming into that system.
Got it.
Right, everything it is aggregated that at that one place. So and that is a manual approval. After that only it goes to manufacturing, and then that order is confirmed for the user. I'm just considering a very usual workflow in manufacturing industries.
Right.
In such cases, all this particular data which is currently in your manufacturing system, your order, once it gets confirmed, you can that is available in CDP, but then consider that being done by batch, right? It's your downstream legacy system, and from there it is moving in batches into CDP, so that all those customer profiles, all those customers who had ordered that, is now their lifetime from just being a user, or merely a user, to a converted customer. There is a term available in CDP when you buy something, it says it is converted now.
So from user to customer.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So that can be done in batches as well.
So Sitecore CDP is having great capabilities, and I'm eager to work on it.
Nice.
Yeah, if I get a chance, for sure.
Yeah.
And thank you for providing information on Sitecore CDP and its capabilities.
Yeah.
So maybe we can have we will have one more session on Sitecore personalization, where we can use those CDP data, how we can utilize into the personalization.
Correct. Absolutely, we will.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks for having me, Varun.